Hello friends, welcome here or welcome back. Throughout December and also actually the end of November, I have been reading entirely cosy fantasy fiction books. And I thought I would share them with you today if you are also on the hunt for some wintry, seasonal, cosy reading that is not Christmassy now that we are out of the Christmas season. Some of these are very wintry in wintry landscapes and settings, whereas others are just really cosy and perfect for snuggling up and reading on a cold winter's day or night. So get yourself a warm drink, cozy up, and let's settle in to talk about the books that I read this month. So the first book is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This is a very cosy, heartwarming, high fantasy, almost slightly fairy tale-esque novel set within the existing Cosmere universe. However, if you've also, like myself, not read anything set in this universe by Brandon Sanderson, don't let that deter you from picking it up because you can truly enjoy this as a standalone book. We follow Tress, a girl who lives a small but very content life on her little island, surrounded by a sea made from spores. She spends her days collecting cups and listening to stories from her friend Charlie, who just so happens to be the son of the Duke. One day the Duke takes his son to sail around and try and find Charlie a bride, but when the heir that returns with the Duke is not Charlie, she realises that she actually loves him and she must leave the island to go in search for him and rescue him from the sorceress who has captured him. This book has pirates and seafaring shenanigans. The magic system is really fun. There's completely lovable characters, a talking rodent sidekick, and lots of heart and plenty of adventure. The narrative style and the narrative voice is also incredibly funny, and it's just the perfect form of escapism for cold winter days. Next, I read The Very Secret Society for Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. This is a beautiful, heartwarming magical realism book set in the present day and is all about friendship and found family and love. We follow Mika Moon, who is a witch who has been isolated for her entire life, hoping that this will keep herself and the other witches safe. But one day she receives a very unexpected invitation to go to a mysterious place called Nowhere House and teach 3 young witches how to use and control their magic. Here she meets an incredibly diverse and completely lovable family who have all chosen each other, but some members of this family are more willing to embrace her than others. This book is so warm and uplifting. It was one of my favourite books that I read last year, especially if you're looking for a really cosy, heartwarming story. It's also full of romance, and it's all about sort of trusting yourself, trusting love, finding belonging, and there's lots and lots of fun magic too. Thirdly, we have Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldry, and this is the prequel to his other book, Legends and Lattes. It follows the same main character, Viv, but this is set many years before she kind of starts her coffee shop entrepreneurship. After suffering a significant injury, Viv is forced to recuperate in this seemingly sleepy coastal town. While recovering, she embarks on a love of reading, as well as getting to know the local tradespeople, including a Ratkin-run bookshop and a very delicious sounding bakery. Honestly, every time I read about the baked goods, I did find myself feeling quite peckish. Among this wholesome storyline of good books and friendship and a little bit of romance, there is also a mystery to be solved and lives to be saved. I didn't love it quite as much as Legends and Lattes, but it's still a very fun, high fantasy book with very low stakes, with lots of humour and coziness too. The next book I read was Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. This is a sort of reinterpretation of the folklore and legend Rumpelstiltskin, so the book is incredibly rich in folkloric and fairy tale inspirations and tropes. It centres 3 different very strong-willed, wonderful women from very varied backgrounds who are all trying to do what they can for their loved ones, their family and their communities. The first is Miriam, the daughter of a moneylender who takes over the family business after her family is left in poverty when her father is too kind to collect what is owed. She gains a reputation for being able to turn silver into gold through her cleverness and her resourcefulness in finance and trade. And this is something that the king of a dark magical winter realm called the Stark Realm learns of and wishes to take advantage of. Then we have Wanda, who is the daughter of a deeply abusive father who connects with Miriam after visiting her house to repay her father's debts through working for Miriam and her family. And then finally we have Irina, a highborn girl whose father plans to marry her to the Tsar. However, the Tsar is not quite what he seems and he hides a very dark secret, and this secret threatens the world that these women live in, as well as the land of the Winter King and his subjects. This book is one of my favourite books that I read last year. The writing is incredibly lyrical, the story is very layered and complex and rich, and the characters all have a wonderful depth to them. There is significant character development for all of the women and also a lot of the side characters too, and you really come to love and appreciate all of them for their strengths and their flaws, and you just really want them all to triumph over the adversities that they individually and collectively face. And then finally, the last book that I read in December was The Winter Garden by Alexandra Bell. This is a magical realism novel set in Victorian England. When our protagonist Beatrice is 8 years old, her mother passes away, and in her time of grief, a magical garden full of mysterious and wonderful plants and creatures appears to her. After 7 days though, this garden disappears and she cannot make anyone believe her that she's visited. Fast forward to many years later, on the eve of the wedding that she is due to be married to a man that she does not love at all, she decides to cancel the wedding, much to the disgrace of the Victorian society, and search for the winter garden instead. Years pass and both herself and her close friend Rosa are invited to participate in a competition to win a wish from the remaining magic of the Winter Garden. And we follow their friendship and we follow their own adventures and how they entangle together, as well as all of the beautiful magic and landscape that is described in the book. There are moments of this book where it does kind of feel like the author is hitting you over the head with certain ideas, but overall the writing is beautiful and very whimsical and evocative. In particular, the way that the flora and the fauna and the clockwork is described. However, I do have one kind of main gripe, and that is the way that slavery is brought up and then glossed over almost immediately. So our other main character is Beatrice's friend Rosa, who is American and grew up in Georgia, and we are told that her family have made their fortune in new money from their plantations. It's also mentioned in passing that she was raised and cared for by women in slavery, and it's kind of said in a way that's almost in passing and slightly flippant, because it's brought up very quickly and then dismissed a sentence later, which really makes me wonder why it was included at all, especially as it doesn't really offer great insight into Rosa's general character or anything relevant to the plot in that moment. Although you could argue that this is in keeping in the time period of Victorian England when slavery is only really just beginning to be abolished. There are so many other elements in the book that, for example, the attitudes that the main characters take towards mental health and grief, they have a much more modern perspective, and as readers we are made to feel like we should be applauding the characters for their views on mental health and women and these more progressive viewpoints, coupled with the fact that this is magical realism and there are magical creatures and plants adorning every page of the book. I find it difficult to see a reason why, if Alexandra Bell feels it completely necessary to bring up these points about slavery, why they are not interrogated or challenged in any way. I don't know, I just thought that that kind of let the book down a little bit. Needless to say, the cast of characters themselves also contains little to no diversity, which in itself is also quite disappointing. So as a general concept and idea, I really liked the book, but there are just a couple of things that I find it hard not to mention when reviewing a book like this, especially when it's kind of a piece of historical fiction, but is not completely true to the time in any other aspect. It didn't quite sit well with me, and I thought I would mention it. So those are all of the books that I read throughout December and also at the very end of November. If you're like me and you like seasonal reading and tailoring your reading to the time of year it is, I find it sometimes a little bit difficult in wintertime because so many books that are being released are quite Christmassy. So I thought I would just let you know what I've been reading and enjoying in winter that is not Christmassy, and that you can still enjoy well into the next couple of months. Let me know what you are reading and enjoying in the comments below if you would like to, or similarly if you have any other nice wintry seasonal reads that you would recommend. Thanks so much for being here, take care, and I will see you next week. Goodbye!